We're excited to talk to you today. I asked my son, Dexter, to be a guest here today. Dexter, would you say a word and greet the men?
Well, I certainly hope all is well, especially for this time that we're in as a nation. I know it's very difficult, but hopefully we can bring some solace for you all. It's much needed right now.
It's a very difficult time indeed. Lots been going on, particularly in our country and in our community and in our world. And you've got a lot of emotions to manage, from the pandemic to the social justice issues, which hit us. Both of them hit us unusually hard. The images seem to be very painful experiences for us to face, but in the midst of that, there's still Jesus, and there's still the blood and the cross and the power of the Lord. I really believe that we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
I believe we're going to be all right. I think it's a conversation. It's a tough conversation. It's a painful conversation, but it's much like a conversation in a marriage. If you get to the point that you stop talking, the marriage is doomed. As long as there's some level of communication, it might be emotional, it might be painful, but conversation is good. When you stop talking, that's when the marriage is doomed. So hopefully our country will have this conversation and move forward. Thankfully, that's not the conversation we're going to have with you today. We're going to have a conversation, as this is Fatherhood Saturday. We're going to be talking about fatherhood and what it means to be a father. And I looked up a definition of a father, and it meant to be a co-parent in the relationship and the development of a child. And that is a collaborative effort. It's a very important effort. To those of you that are not fathers, you are the sons of fathers, then you may be a father. And so there's still going to be some good things in it for you to talk about. I asked my son to be a part of this. One, because we realize we're dealing with multi-generational audience. And also he's my proof that that I'm not just talking. He can bear witness and share his perspective, and it's going to be interesting. I thought I'd start it off. I pulled some statistics. They're social statistics involving fatherlessness, and I'll give you just a few of them. The percentage of children without a father in the United States is about 43%. It's much higher, I'm sure, in the African-American community, but even in the general perspective of all of America, that means almost 50% of kids are growing up in homes without a father. If a child has a father in the home, they are 40% less likely to repeat grade school. Teenage repeat offenders, arsonists, is 90% more likely to be from an absent father household, according to Psychology Today. The percentage of minors in prison who grew up without fathers is 85%. 85% of kids in correctional institutions grew up without father. Kids with fathers who are involved in their lives are more likely to do better in school than kids who don't have a father in the home, according to the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Preschoolers with an involved father figure develop better verbal skills, according to the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Girls are more likely to have children as teenagers if they grow up without a father. Kids experience fewer behavioral issues in school when a father figure is active in their life. Girls develop stronger math skills when growing up with a father in the home, according to the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Boys get better grades in school when a father figure is active in their life, according to the United States Department of Health. On and on and on, makes a good argument as to why we matter. We do matter. We make a difference. And my son and I are going to talk collaboratively just about that in general. I'm gonna start off with something that I didn't mention to you about Dexter, but I happened to be listening at something on YouTube with Dave Chappelle meeting Dr. Maya Angelou. And Dr. Maya told this story about coming out of a hotel or someplace, and two or three black men were going at it, and they were about to fight, and it was rambunctious, and they were cursing, and they were agitated, and it was getting out of hand. And she walked up to one of the young men and said, "Can I have a word with you?" And he said, "No, get out of my face. Get out of the way. I got stuff to do." She said, just a word for a minute." She said, "I just want to say something to you for a minute, and you go and do whatever you want to do." And after going back and forth, the young man finally said, "Go ahead and say what you got to say and get out of the way." And she said, "I just wondered, had anybody ever told you how important you are? Has anybody ever told you that you matter, and that your ancestors bled and died and fought and killed for right for you to breathe air? Has anybody ever told you that you are the dream that they had of the future? Has anybody ever told you that you're valuable and that you're gifted and that you're creative? Has anybody ever told you how very, very special you are, and that there'll never be another you in all the world? There'll be thousands and thousands of babies born, but there'll never be another you in all the world. Has anybody ever told you that they love you?" She said, "Because I love you, and I wanted to tell you that I love you. And I wondered, had anybody ever really told you that they loved you and that you're powerful and that you're important and that you matter?" And as she kept talking, the young man started crying. He went from ready to fight and kill to in tears. And she didn't know at that time that this was an important conversation, but the young man was Tupac. And she didn't know who Tupac was. But the conversation she had with him is a good startup for where we are today. Too many young men and young girls have never been told or taught that they matter, that they're important, that they can make a difference, that their parents and their grandparents and great-grandparents and forefathers dreamed of them, that they stand on a legacy that's bigger than themselves, that they are gifted and that they are talented and that they make a difference in the world. The absence of significance is a very painful thing to have to confront and live through. And that kind of conversation that she had with him, though she was a woman and not even his mother, is the kind of conversations that fathers have with sons. And I wanted my son to talk about how our conversations affected him growing up and how it shaped who he is.
So for me, you were essentially my North Star, the compass that I use to really help find my way in life. That person to challenge you and point you in the right direction, to let you know that you are a prince, that you come from somewhere, you come from something that has great significance, great meaning. Even just my name, just to don me with your name was its own blessing. But the significance behind it is not just superficial. It has deep meaning, deep roots. And from those roots comes a level of persistence that has carried me all throughout my life. That's the significance that a father has played in my life. And when you bring up those statistics, it breaks my heart. And I just want to empathize with those people, because I can only imagine the level of loss that someone would feel in those shoes, quite honestly. But what you're missing out on, hopefully we can help to bring that awareness to you, because it's not too late to have someone mentor you, to pour into you, even if you did not have a father. That doesn't really count you out for the race. My father grew up largely without having an active father figure in his life, but that informed, and I'm sure you can say this yourself, that informed a lot of his principles as a father. From that need, it helped him to become a stronger person, not just for the siblings before me, but to really instill these roots into his grandkids. So the value of having a father is priceless, quite honestly. I will always be reaping the seeds that you have sown into me. The conversations we've had at several different phases of my life have helped to push me further and further and further. And not just the conversations, the things that you modeled, more than the conversations actually, played a very pivotal role. You didn't need to tell me to get up and work and do all those things, but you modeled it, you know. There are a multitude of examples of us running around airports and doing all of this traveling and stuff like that. And as a kid, you know, you're just trying to keep up and you don't understand the significance until you have to go out there and hunt yourself. So like I said, you are that North Star for me.
It's funny you should say that. My father got sick when I was 10 and died when I was 16. But as a little boy, he carried me to work with him. And it almost seemed abusive at the time. My father ran a janitorial service and they would lock us into a store like a Walmart. It wasn't Walmart back then, it was Kmart. But they would lock us in the store and we would have to strip and wax the floors and get them dry and get them ready to open up in the morning. When they came to work in the morning, they would let us out. So there I am, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old kid locked up in a Kmart all night with a job. He put a Brillo pad in my hand and tell me to scrub the corners where the buffers missed. And that was my job. And he took it real seriously. If I didn't get it right, he was the first one to let me know. And he was hard to please. And he was verbal if he wasn't pleased. He wasn't like physically abusive, but he was quite verbal if he wasn't pleased. And as a little boy, you wanted to please him. And much like Dexter described me, my father never so much told me to go to work. I just watched what he did. And when I got old enough to do it, the first thing I couldn't wait to go to work. I couldn't wait to go to work because that to me defined what a man was his work ethic. And whether it was loading his trucks up and running buffers up a ramp to put on the truck and winding up cable cords and extension cords and water hoses and all of that, he set the bar. He set the standard. It wasn't good till he said it was good. It wasn't right till he said it was right. He would undo it and redo it and be fussing at me and telling me how it ought to be done and telling me to take my hands out my pocket like I had $1 million in it. And I didn't at the time. And just doing things that helped me to understand something about a good work ethic. So it never occurred to me to be a bum. It never occurred to me to lay on the couch at home as a man. It never occurred to me, never for a minute did it ever occur to me to grow up and wander around trying to find something that I wanted to do, because wanted was never in the conversation. You did what was necessary. You did what you were supposed to do. And that's what I did. And when my son came along, I was well in the process of parenting. I already had 2 older boys and 2 older girls. And he came along kind of at the end of the story. I described Dexter as the child of my old age, which makes real good sense right now when my hair is gray. But I had him when I was 38 years old. So I wasn't that old, but that's old for having a child. Yeah, come on now. Act right. And it had a lot to do with how I parented. The stage of life you're in has a lot to do with how you're parenting. I parented my younger sons when I was 24, and they came into my life when I was 24 years old. And there's a lot of difference between 24 and 38. So you grow as a father. You grow and you develop as a father. And you learn as a father. I heard Billy Graham say something that really leaped at me toward the end of his career, and he had traveled all over the world, literally all over the world, crusades like you would not believe. Billy Graham could pack out a football stadium in any city he went to. He was made huge altar calls, indescribable altar calls with thousands and thousands of people coming to Jesus on national TV, on regular television. I mean, if Billy Graham came to town, all the press would cover it. It wouldn't just be Christian press. And he'd written several books. He'd even done some television. He'd done some of everything. And I asked him, did he have any regrets? And he said, the one thing that I regret the most is that I didn't spend more time with my children. It wasn't that he didn't get to speak on a platform or address a president, though he addressed many. It wasn't some remote island that he never got to evangelize. It wasn't a certain amount of money he wished he had or a house he would have built. It was that he would have spent more time with his children, because the older you get, you begin to realize that your children are your wealth. They are your legacy. They're the only thing that you have that's going to matter eventually. You can't take the money with you. You're going to leave the house. Somebody's going to sell your car. They're going to box your clothes up in a bag and put it away somewhere or give it away. But your children are going to be standing there as a testimony that you existed. And I think it comes down to what a man values is what he puts his time into. And you learn that. You don't always start out knowing that, but you learn that. Most men who become fathers because of their mother. And a man knows how to relate to the mother. And often if the relationship doesn't go good with the mother, he leaves the mother and the children. The problem with that is, and I want the young men to hear me real good, maybe some older men too, the boy or the girl grows up feeling like, what was wrong with me that my father left me? And 90% of the time, I keep telling them, your father didn't leave you, he left your mother. He left your mother. And women don't give up children easily. In fact, often they won't allow you to see them. And legally, they won't allow you to see them if you're not paying child support. And little by little, whether it's by lack of resources or the foolishness of men not paying child support, or the inability of men to pay child support, whatever the reason is, the drug addiction, the alcoholism, the other relationships they get involved with and get married again, or whatever the reason is, there's not a backdrop for him to have a relationship with the child if he doesn't have a relationship with the mother. And so a lot of times the boy feels abandoned and loses self-esteem and says, I must be bad. He didn't love me enough to stay. You don't divorce a child, you divorce a mother. And so it does have ramifications on the child. But if there's any young men sitting out there now who are feeling like that anger that I see so prevalent with young men, sometimes all the way up into their 40s, they're angry with their fathers. They hate them. And they hate them because they weren't there for them. And I get it and I understand it. They hate them because they played football with nobody in the stands. They played baseball and nobody was there to cheer them on, and all the other kids brought their dads, and they didn't have that, and it created a hole and a bitterness in their heart that I get. There's simple things that their mother didn't teach them. They don't know how to tie a tie, may not know how to ride a bike. Simple things can create a lot of pain in your life. But you have to realize as you grow older, you have to begin to understand that the story is more complicated than you and your dad. The story encompasses you, your dad, and your mother. There is a big difference between being a husband and being a father. Those are two different skill sets. Some men are better at being a father than they are at being a husband. Some men are better at being a husband than they are at being a father, and some men aren't too good at either one. I don't know what category you fall in. Both of them are a job of mammoth gorilla proportions. Both of them are a lifetime job. You spend an hour, 30 minutes, or 5 minutes in the bed, and all of a sudden you've got a baby for the next 50 years of your life. I gave all those different time zones so I could accommodate all of y'all.
Speak to the whole group.
I don't want to. I will leave nobody out of the discussion. But regardless of how long you lasted, you never last long enough in bed to cover how long you last as a father or as a husband. And at the end of the day, it's a lifelong job. It doesn't have immediate benefits and it doesn't pay initially. Often you don't feel appreciated. Often you don't feel valued because little kids with fathers, Dexter's an exception to this rule, but kids with fathers don't always appreciate having them because they don't know what it is not to have them. So they have nothing to compare it to. And it's only when they try to be one that they begin to see how tough it is. And sometimes because we internalize our pain, we are married to people who don't know that it hurts to be a husband and it hurts to be a man. And it's not easy. And you get beat up at work and you get beat up at home. And then you come to church and half time you get beat up in church and you're just beat up everywhere, especially if you go to a church where the pastor fusses all the time. You can't find a place where you're not beat up till you end up in the bed of somebody you're not supposed to be with.